going on, guys? This is our most recent episode of OPS Unfiltered. Today I have a very special guest. This is Parker Burr.
What's up, Jared?
What's up, man? We just had a conversation a couple weeks ago. Parker is the former co-founder of Feet Clothing. Where are you currently based out of right now?
I'm in Connecticut. Just moved back here to grow up a little bit. Spent like 10 years out in Southern California chasing all the dreams, and now we got a baby on the way, so we decided to move back near family in Connecticut.
Amazing, man. Yeah, so you had Feet Clothing. For people who haven't heard of it, it's actually a well-known brand in LA. I think you guys for a time were kind of like the sweetheart brand of LA. You were big in the e-commerce scene. Kind of just for the people who don't know what Feet is, what was it? What did you build?
And so I guess to like paint the whole picture, I'm 31 currently, and I started Feet in 2014. So I must have been 20 years old or 19 or somewhere around there. I was in college. I saw this crazy trend where guys like you and I started wearing crazy socks for the first time. Prior to that, we just wore white socks and didn't think about it for 2 seconds. So I kind of noticed this trend. I was like, why are dudes wearing socks with like bananas and monkeys and stuff? Like, what is going on here? So I won a pitch competition in the class, got $300, watched a bunch of YouTube videos, learned how to print patterns onto socks. So
what class was this? What class?
It was a class at UMass. This professor, Bob Lowry, and he had a pitch competition, and out of his personal checkbook, the winner got $300.
Wow.
So I won. I took $300, bought a heat press, watched a bunch of YouTube videos, learned how to print patterns on the socks, and Feet was born. And like that was the whole vision from the beginning. I just thought I could do that, and I went after it for 10 years. I blinked, and 10 years went by, and it was a crazy journey. So that was really like the origin story.
I'm always curious with e-commerce founders, like, did you ever think this was going to be like a 10-year thing, or did you just like, did you know what you wanted to do at the beginning when you started to get some traction? Or
no way, man. I really didn't. All I could see was like the next step. I couldn't see step number 10, but I could see like the next step, and I just did that repeatedly over and over. And like I think it was like kind of a confirmation bias. Like with every little bit of progress, then I felt more confident taking the next step. Doesn't mean there weren't missteps and stuff like that, but it was like I was making just enough progress to stay hooked on it, but absolutely had no idea I'd be running after that for 10 years. I even had different people come into the business thinking, oh, come join for a couple of years. And, it's like, man, these things are marathons, not sprints. They're built over the long haul. Direct to consumer was really young. We didn't start as a direct to consumer business.
What year was this, by the way? The
2014.
2014, we started selling socks. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. Dude, we were slinging socks like to our friends on campus. Like it was not a sexy business. Cool. Like that doesn't even sound like a good idea to do in the first place. You know what I mean?
How are you doing the printing of the socks? Was it just like a local screen printer, or like you just found it?
Yeah, I found this. I found this thing online where this like YouTube video. I literally was like, how do I print on socks? And I bought a bunch of socks at TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and then I watched YouTube videos to figure out how to print and like press this pattern onto socks. And it was like just a unique time that was kind of new technology, and that's what we started doing. They're like really vibrant, fun, catchy socks. Maybe your editor can look up like Feet Socks 2014 and put an image of the OGs right here, because it was just a really fun time when you saw these things. You were like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Okay, so why did you branch out then to basics and to like I think the next product was a hoodie, like the softest hoodie in the world. What caused that?
It's a lot of thinking and experience, a lot of years of experience led me to get there. So like it was probably like a 3-4 year journey of just trying to figure out how do I sell socks at scale. And I met the co-founders of Chubbies, and they're really the OGs of this space, right? These guys were like, hey, you got to check out this thing called Shopify, and that's how you sell online.
No.
All right, like we'll check this thing out. This is 2014. So we built a Shopify store. And we're like, all right, like now what do we do? And it just kind of opened our eyes little by little to direct to consumer as a business model, and understanding like the power of like paid social and all of those things at that time when it wasn't really known, right? Like the playbook is known today. It was not known back then.
I'm so curious. So talking about this playbook, like it's almost impossible to fathom nowadays to like, well, of course you go to Shopify. Of course you try Amazon. Like, What was back then, like in 2014, 15, 16, before you talked to the Chubbies guys and was like, hey, you should try the Shopify thing. How did you think the business was supposed to progress back then? Just like slowly expand physical distribution, or like?
Totally. I thought you sell your socks to surf shops and sport shops, and then that's how you build a business, and that was the norm. And one of our earliest investors, Western Mass guy, he said, "You guys should really check out like selling online." And I remember saying to him, like, "Dude, no one buys socks online. What are you talking about?" I wrote him off for like years. Like 2 years later, I'm like, "Hey, I got this crazy idea. Like, we're gonna sell online. We're gonna be a direct to consumer business." And it's crazy those things. Like looking back now, you're like, "How did you not see that?" But like that wasn't the normal behavior. We didn't buy online, even just 2014 like we do today. It's changed so much. It was so not obvious at that time. It's crazy to think about now. You're like, what are you talking about? Of course, you know?
Yeah, that's incredible. It reminds me how e-commerce has, oh my God, it's changed so much over the past 10 years. Even just since
Dude, it reminds
2014.
me of, I just watched this clip yesterday of Steve Jobs unveiling the iPhone, and he's like, watch this. And he's like, how are we going to scroll? And he just scrolls with his finger, and the crowd is like,
Yeah.
oh my God. They couldn't sit in their seat, you know? That wasn't that long ago. That was 2007. That's not that long ago, you know?
Ah, it's incredible. So,
Yeah.
when did you expand to hoodies?
Pretty late, man. So I started in 14, probably by 2018. I really understood the direct-to-consumer model at that point in time. I was like, I understand direct-to-consumer. I understand the power of paid social. I understand CACs and AOVs and the math behind this business. And that math tells me that socks are not the best item to take advantage of this opportunity. So I said, okay, I'm kind of in this clothing business. Like, what could I expand that doesn't feel like too far of a reach, but I can have some competitive edge? And I was on this plane going to Japan with a bunch of friends, and we're like, well, who's known for the hoodie? Like we looked at every piece of clothing. There's a lot of hat companies, a lot of t-shirt companies, right? How many t-shirt companies could you name? There's a lot of these different companies. Even socks. There were a lot of guys making socks. Stance,
Stance. I was gonna say Stance. Yeah.
You know, Richard Poor, a bunch of these guys were making them, but like no one was known for the hoodie. And I'm looking around. All my friends and I are wearing hoodies every single day. It's like the most worn item amongst me and my peers, but no one's known for it. So I was like, okay, like let's play with that. Like, what would I make if I just made the best hoodie ever? And I was like, it'd have to be incredibly soft and comfy, right? That's why you wear a hoodie, to be cozy. And it would have to be visually appealing to like be able to pick up eyeballs online, right? Because like if it doesn't stand out, it's really hard. It needs to be visually different and visually striking. So what I did was I flipped the fabric inside out so that it was fuzzy on the outside and smooth on the inside. And that was really pretty revolutionary. Like people saw this hoodie, and then once I branded it Blanket Blend, it just kind of hit. So I'm on this plane to Japan. We're trying to figure out this name for this hoodie, and a friend and I are like, you know, we like alliteration, this, that, the other. We said Blanket Blend, and it was honestly just a pivotal moment in the business. When I released Blanket Blend, we tripled the business that year.
So 2018, you guys were at what revenue?
Like almost $10 million. We were shy of, maybe not 18, probably 19. We were almost $10 million in revenue. So
wow.
It was
so you guys went from three to three-ish to 10.
Something like that.
Okay,
exactly.
Wow.
Like I think we were doing like 2 to 3 when we were in the sock business, and then we're pushing towards 10 when we come out with this hoodie, and we're like, oh my gosh, we can't keep these things in stock. So it was a crazy time, you know. It was like, oh, this actually works. It made me appreciate, now looking back, product market fit, right? Like the market wanted the thing that we made. For a long time when we were selling socks, it felt like we were pushing a boulder up a hill. When we released this hoodie, it just took off. And I think now when I think about future ventures, I'm like, that's what product market fit looks like, right? When the market really wants what you have, you don't have to be that convincing to give it to them.
Got it. So now pivoting a little bit to, you said something, we couldn't keep it in stock. I think, this is my opinion. I think we probably share the same opinion. It's like, it is... E-commerce founders underestimate inventory troubles big time, and your cash turns on inventory.
For sure.
As a rookie well, you weren't an e-commerce rookie, but like you probably were still sort of like an inventory rookie on like how to keep it in stock and like how to actually forecast and demand plan. What mistakes did you make in 2018, 19, 20 when the hoodie was just popping off?
Man, every mistake, I think like naturally in this era, like it was really popular for the founders to focus their time and energy on the marketing piece and like try to really understand the vehicle that's going to drive it forward. And we all, as a whole, underestimated the back end. And because of that, like you leave a lot of money on the table when things take off and then you sell through. That's great, but on the contrary, like when things don't sell and then you have the wrong inventory, like these businesses live and die by their ability to be efficient with their inventory. Straight up.
And their cash.
Inventory-based businesses. That's what I mean. Yeah, directly. To me, it's one and the same, right?
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just a different form of cash. Like, so I'm just like, yeah, inventory and cash. Like, that's how you live and die in this business. And poor management probably left millions of dollars on the table for sure.
So I'm obviously Luminous, OPS Unfiltered. We're in like the software business. What was your tech stack in 2018 when this was popping off? Like,
oh my gosh! On the back end, our tech stack was a contractor that we paid a couple $1,000s a month to tell us what to order. That was our tech stack.
He would just send you a Google sheet. Oh baby,
like,
let's
hey,
go.
Like, this is going. These signals are looking good. Buy this much of this. We'd be like, all right, sounds good.
And then it sells out. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
you suck.
Yeah. So it's just like I think one of the best in the business at this is my friend who started Cuts, Stephen Braley. I think something brilliant that he did very early on was he did the Friday project. So he had a core line that sells well, and then every Friday they dropped a limited edition item. And it's a simple idea, but I think it's like the most efficient way to expand your product line while de-risking it and then kind of pushing LTV to the max, because you're giving those consumers another reason to buy and come back and check you out every week.
Well, also curious because like so many people are going through what you go through. So let me know if this is correct or not. Like, so I'm assuming Feet, you guys outsourced fulfillment to a 3PL really early. You stayed in marketing and product like the entire time, or like it during this phase that things were exploding. You just hired some random guy to like tell you how much to order. You didn't really value tech. Like, okay, well, what if we had something to plug into our 3PL and like write all of our POs and like keep everything in one spot? What do you wish you would have done back then?
That's a good question. I think I wish we kept it lean and mean. I think in that era, a lot of these companies got bloated, both in the back end and the front end. Big, heavy marketing teams, big, heavy operations teams. Like I'm just a big fan. I think direct to consumer as a business, or businesses that are primarily direct to consumer, I think they need to be lean and mean. Money needs to go into product and marketing, right? And then the operations to make sure that you're meeting all those expectations. But like keep it lean and mean. I think we just got over in front of our skis time and time again in multiple iterations. Like I built this business probably 3 times. We built it as a sock business, grew quickly to a couple $1 million, fell flat on our face, rebuilt it from scratch, built it up, as Feet that you saw a couple years ago. Then it fell flat, and now it's being built up again. So it's like an interesting growth cycle that we've gone through a couple times now.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you avoid that hamster wheel? Because like I did a post about this recently where it's like there's so many brands that they if you turn off Meta ads, like your business dies, and that's not that's not a brand. No problem. It's freaking hard to build a brand, but I think people a lot of times walk around with this false sense of security. We're like, oh no, we're a mini, insert big brand name here. Yeah. And it's like, no, actually, if you turn off your acquisition channels, it would probably die. Like, how do you balance that?
Even just on that note, it's interesting, right? Someone is going to make money as you're building your business. You're going to pay someone to grow, right? And by someone, I mean Meta, some form of paid social, a landlord if you're a retail business. Like someone's going to eat off of it. You're going to pay someone for the growth. I think the idea of like simply existing and selling is not a reality. Like that doesn't exist. Someone's going to get paid. You want to build a big retail business, you're going to pay rent, right? You want to build a big online business, you're going to pay for paid social. I think like, sure, if you're one of the leading creators in the world, you can have this organic traffic built in. But the idea of building a business that is just propelled by organic awareness sounds great in theory, but I would say 95% of businesses that doesn't apply to, probably more, Yes. Someone's going to get paid for you to grow.
Yeah. Do you think like the modern brand, or at least like the modern brand that's truly going to last the test of time, they have to do a true like omni-channel mix and still keep it lean. Like they have to have physical presence all over. Is
I think like we're at an interesting time where internally in a business, I would encourage brands to operate as lean and mean as possible and really focus on tech stack to replace headcount. And then externally, you need to do more things than ever. So you need to be in more channels, working with more acquisition channels. So like, they're like, they're like going opposite ways, right? Both of those trends are going opposite ways. So it's a challenging time, but I think the most exciting thing is that I think you're going to see 10 million, $100 million brands built with just a couple people. I think Native comes to mind for being famously operated by 5 people and selling for $100 million. Like, right? Yeah, like Jolie, exactly. These are like the brands that I look up to personally.
100%. No, you talked about something before. How do you I think there's a fine line between bloated NetSuite tech stack, like, okay, you don't need NetSuite, but then also like paying somebody a couple $1,000 a month to like send you a Google Sheet scrappy. Like how do you walk that fine line between a super bloated, too big tech stack and like, okay, well we're leaving money, like we're not managing the best.
Yeah, I think it's like, look, these tech stacks for direct to consumer businesses just seem to grow out of nowhere. Every month we would look and, oh my gosh, what is all this different tech that we have? But then when you really get down to it, it's like, what are the most essential tech products that this business needs? Like I think that's the more important question to ask, is to think about like, there's more tech than ever. There's more tech vendors than ever. Like what are the most essential things? Like you need to dial in your operations. It's a non-negotiable, right? It's literally a non-negotiable. You can't just make this stuff up. Like you need something. I think that's why we're seeing companies like yours be built, because these merchants need it. They're like, I can't afford the operations guy that costs $300,000 a year. There's got to be another alternative, and the alternative is software.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, what is your alternative? You have kind of two ends of the spectrum. Pay a random person a couple $1,000s a month to hopefully get it right. With that, your give is probably maybe you're not getting the most value out of them, right? But your take is that they're not as expensive. The other end of the spectrum is a big, expensive COO. Reality is you can't afford them in this business, right? So you can't afford the things you actually need. What's in the middle? Software.
I feel like a theme that we're talking about here is like, there's in all of these different topics, there's a fine line between like too scrappy and then like really bloated. It's like there's NetSuite tech stack, and then there's like guy on Google Sheet, and then there's like small ops team, and then like 300K COO. There's like getting a little bit of money to help you fundraise, and there's like raising 10 million at 100 value. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then realizing like it's a toggle, right? Like you as the founder or operator need to decide like which things do we really need to spring for the big expensive version of, because it's just like it's a competitive advantage, and then which things do we need to find like a middle ground.
What comes
and then
to
which things do we need to be most cheap with?
I'm genuinely curious, because you said something like, I think all e-com founders at some point are like, they look at all of the freaking tech that they're using, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? What are there any ones, because you were in that era, the 2014 to 2020, are there any pieces of tech that stick out to you like, oh, that was so cool? Like, I don't know, like Route, or like I don't know, like something.
That's interesting. Like, what was so cool at that time? Man, like, I don't know specific to Shopify tech stack. Like the apps back then, it was just a different landscape. I'm trying to think of something that we found really valuable. Let me think on that as we carry on with this conversation. And I'll see if I can come up with something.
No worries.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to pivot the conversation a little bit. We've been talking about Feet and like e-com companies in general, how you blew up, you go through cycles, how striking a balance between bloated and scrappy. I'm actually more curious as somebody from the East Coast and who moved out west and spent a big portion of your life. That must have been a journey. How did living in LA change you for good or for bad
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I think like, man, I could talk about this one for hours. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut. Great family, great friends, all the things. And then I moved out to this big city of LA. Never lived in a big city, really. I went to school in Western Mass, so like middle of nowhere college town. Um, so when you show up in LA, you're like, first of all, there's shiny object syndrome everywhere, right? Like there's just everyone's doing all these things. And I think I was so shocked at how many people were willing to just step on you for them to get ahead. I think that was like the biggest eye opener to me. I was like, whoa, like I just don't operate like that. Like I operate like, with the best intention and arms open. And all of a sudden I felt like people were stepping on me to get past me. And that was the most shocking feeling. I don't know if it's specific to LA, just big city, just the real world even, because at the point in my life, like I'm really just entering the real world for the first
do you
time.
remember like a welcome to LA moment where you're just like, oh shit, I guess people are like that
God,
here?
you know what's funny is I actually remember more good things than bad things. The good things were when I met Jake, the founder of Movement, and he takes us into his office. These guys are pioneers of the direct-to-consumer industry, and he's like, "I'm gonna help you."
That's so cool.
Like, I'm like, why? In my head, that's what I'm thinking. Jake changed my life. Like in this business, he opened my eyes to direct-to-consumer more than anyone else, and he did it for no reason than to just be a good guy. He didn't want equity in the business. He didn't want money. He didn't want consulting fees. He didn't want anything. He was like, hey, I'm doing it over here. I see what you guys are doing. I think he can help you. He went out of his way to help us. So I'm thankful for him. Like people like Jake were the ones that just make me think about like, that's incredible. Wildly successful people willing to
Yeah.
help the next guy. Jake, Brandon from Liquid IV, Borelli from Cuts. Like that was kind of my crew when I was in LA. And these guys are all wildly successful, and they're all just willing to just help each other. And that was a really special kind of camaraderie thing that we had going in LA that I'm thankful for.
That is a crew of legend right there. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys
It
are
was a
like
good one, man.
you guys are like the e-com godfathers. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So how did do you think operating in LA, like in the LA e-commerce scene, affected some of your decisions to take money and to like expand at all costs or
For sure, right? You're surrounded by the most successful people in this industry for the most part, or some of them. Any numbers you put up seem small compared to theirs, and it's hard not to just compare and contrast, right? Just directly. I think like the social comparison was one of the biggest struggles that I ever had. I mean, look at the crew I was hanging out with, right? Like
yeah.
Brandon bought a house next to LeBron from Liquid IV, right? Like Jake is one of the most successful exits in direct to consumer, and Borelli built Cuts. So just in my immediate social circle, I'm like, these are some of the most successful people ever. I feel like a failure no matter what level of success I have. So like social comparison has always been something that like, man, was so hard. The flip side of that, they made me think really big.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. It's a pro and a con. Like they made me think really big. I don't know if I never got exposed to that. Like, and I stayed in Western Mass or Connecticut. I don't know if I would have had that exposure to think like maybe I could sell something for $100 million one day. In Brandon's case, 500 million or whatever they sold for, right? Like
Yeah.
they just made me think so big and realize that it's possible. And I think that is probably the thing I'm most thankful for.
Oh,
So
that's really
it's a give
cool.
and take. Social comparison on one side is really hard, but also like they inspire you to dream bigger and think bigger and realize that like your own thinking is your biggest limitation.
Got it. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Did you because I know you had a co-founder at Feet. How
Yeah.
did you guys meet, and how did he come into the business? I believe his name is Taylor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we were at UMass. I was running a different business at the time that I started when I was 18. I was making lacrosse uniforms for teams, and it was really taking off, doing great. I was making money. Had had a couple different trucks and trailers that we would go to these events and sell all this stuff, and the business was great. And those customers wanted to buy socks, and that's what kind of sparked my interest to get into the sock category. So we were in this class, and there's this kid in the front of class talking about this big like fraternity t-shirt company he's building, and he sold $25,000 of stuff, and he was talking up his own game pretty big, and I was like, who's this guy? Like, and for some reason I was like screw that, like I've sold over $1 million, like why is he getting all this attention, So I went up to him and we talked about it, and before we knew it we were just working on Feet together, so brought him in to continue to build Feet.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
That was the early serendipitous moment. But I think it was just the synergies of like he's building, I'm building, we're kind of loosely in the same space. Maybe together we can go further.
Oh, that's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
and what was your dynamic like through the years at Feet? Where did you guys have different
Yeah.
approaches? Was it all sunshine
Yeah.
and rainbows, or?
Yeah, it's all sunshine and rainbows all the way through. No, I think it changed over the years. In the early days, we both knew very little, right? So we were just trying to take on as much information, meet people, and learn, and try to grow this business any way we could. And that was a really interesting time. We just had so much to learn, right? Like, how do you raise money? Should you raise money? Like, what is the tech we need to build this business? We were just so green to the world. So I think we were able to like hold hands and go through that together, which is really special.
Yeah.
And then at some point, our relationship became so, not even our relationship, our thinking became so much the same that there was very little growth that we were getting out of each other as business partners anymore because we grew up together all through our 20s. We were working on the same projects together. So it was no longer like, Jared, like if you and I work together, we probably have very complementary skill sets, right? You understand software, operations, I understand marketing, product, consumer, like, right? We have complementary skill sets, whereas me and Taylor's skill sets were very much the same. And when that starts to happen, what happens is you don't have anyone pushing your thinking or influencing thinking a different way. So I think that's when it was like we both needed to go find new growth elsewhere.
Ah, that makes total sense. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you follow Y Combinator, but they
Yeah, of
give
course. Yeah.
so much great advice around like finding a co-founder, and like one of their biggest things is to have complementary skill sets. So, for example, with me, like I need a tech co-founder, like who specifically is great on product management and who can actually like code
Yeah.
really well. That's really interesting. When did you guys decide to take on fundraising money?
So we raised a little bit of money pretty early on. Probably in the first year or so, we had someone approach us, say, "Oh, I can invest $250,000," and I'm like, "That's the most money I've ever seen. Sure, we'll take it." Like that was the level of thinking, you know.
What
Um,
valuation and what percentage did you give up for that?
I think it was your standard seed round where we raised like 250, probably 1.5 million valuation, where like the valuation is really irrelevant. It's more just like kind of an agreement for if this kind of works, this is
Right.
how much equity I need. But like back then, man, I remember raising 250 grand. We had to spend 20 grand on legal to secure that money. Like what a joke that is, you know? Like thank God for Y Combinator coming out with this safe note that could have been done without any lawyers. A safe note, write a check, let's go, like in 30 minutes, you know? But we spent like months securing this 250K. And I'm thankful for the guy that did it. But what a funny fundraising story is after we took that 250K, I had someone else approach us. And she said, "Hey, I'm in San Francisco. I'm not a venture capitalist. I'm just a single angel. Are you guys looking for money?" And I was like, "Psh, we just got 250K. I don't need any money." You know, like that was my reaction. I was like, "We don't need money. Like we have more money than I've ever seen." Um, Year later, I'm like out of money. You know, I'm like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, all right, let me figure out who that woman was and call her back. So I call her back. Hey, we talked like a year ago. We're making socks. You know, we're actually raising money, and we went and raised $1 million from her. So pretty early on, we had like over $1 million. You know, 1 million from her, 250 from the previous investor, who we ended up buying out in the future a couple years later. But we raised early, and I think at that point we raised $1 million at a $10 million valuation, and we're off to the races. So that $1 million really enabled us to like pick up, pack up, move to LA, open our warehouse, really give it a go, and kind of send it. So that was really like the thing that unlocked it.
So I have two regret questions. In hindsight, do you regret raising so much money?
Um, I love working with the angels that we brought in. These are both individuals, you know, not from a venture fund. There's more just money into the business, and then if this works out, maybe one day they can see a return on it. What I do regret is in 2022, right about the time I hit the biggest burnout of my whole life, my board and Taylor are like, "Let's go raise a bunch of money and swing for the fences." And I can't remember, 21 or 22, but more recently, they're like, "Let's go raise real money." So they went and raised another $2 or $3 million from venture this time. And when you go once you go that route, it's like a one-way door. You can't go back. And that is probably the point where I'm like, I wouldn't have done that. I actually didn't want to do it. I didn't want to raise money. I wanted to keep it lean and mean and just keep the business for the long term because I didn't have investors breathing down my throat saying they need money back. But raised a couple $1 million from venture, and I think that was my biggest misstep. But the angel money, I would do that again in a heartbeat.
Interesting.
For sure.
So it sounds
I
like
think there's just
there's
a difference between angel money and venture money.
exactly. Well,
You
it
know?
sounds like there's a specific threshold. It sounds like you let me know if I'm hitting on something,
Yeah.
but like if it's okay, angel money is fine. It's like, okay, that can get you going. But the problem is like a later round where if you raise this money, it means you're committing to 9 figures and up revenue and
Yeah.
valuation.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not the reality for the brand you're building.
Yeah, exactly. And literally a few months after we raised that couple $1 million from venture, direct to consumer just collapsed as an industry.
Yeah.
Like Allbirds valuation, I think Allbirds is public, right? They were down 98% since their high. Like just insane. These businesses are going bankrupt left and right. So all of a sudden the valuations in this and the multiples in this industry plummeted. We just took in this fresh cash, and now I'm doing the math and I'm like, there's no scenario here where it makes sense for me to keep working on this business because I would need to sell it for I would need to take no additional cash and sell for hundreds of millions of dollars for me to make a lot of money. And that one just doesn't make any sense.
What was the fatal mistake in this e-commerce collapse? You know, you see Allbirds IPOing like
Yeah.
crazy valuation, and then like everything crashes. What was
Yeah.
the fatal flaw in people's thinking?
I think the fatal flaw in people's thinking was that venture money should play in this industry. The multiples weren't there. These businesses got valued really high for the past 10 years. They got overvalued. And then when it actually came to the day of like, okay, are these profitable businesses that have real long-term value? The answer was not like we thought, right?
Not
So
yet,
multiples,
at least, or like
yeah,
not
yeah,
in
yeah,
this,
exactly.
not Shopify, Amazon, at least for most brands.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this industry, it's built on a bidding system, right? All of your channels are built on a bidding system. So naturally, that creates a race to zero. So if you think about that, like Allbirds comes in, kind of has some success, is able to pull in a bunch of revenue. Well, then other people see that come in. It's driving the cost to acquire a customer up. Like it's naturally a race to zero. So all of a sudden, there's all this venture money floating around. People are spending more and more to get a customer. It's just created this unsustainable cycle where valuations are too high. People are willing to pay too much to get a customer and lose money. And for what, right? Like, why are you willing to lose money? When are you going to actually recognize the value of those customers?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another regret question. This is something that I think about frequently because I've started so many freaking companies. Like some succeeded, some totally flopped. I used to always think I had to bring on somebody, like give up a ton of equity to like bring on a co-founder. Looking back, do you think it was a flaw, or do you think it was a mistake to bring on a co-founder so early? Would you recommend to other e-com founders, like, would you go the route of, bring on a co-founder, it helps so much, or would it be, you can do a lot more than you think you can?
I think that connection or that answer is directly related to if you know what your desired outcome is. If you know that early on, then you can actually answer that question. If you don't know, which probably most founders don't actually know what their true, like in their soul, desired outcome is. Again, there's no wrong answer. My desired outcome is to be a billionaire, right? Or to like build a lifestyle business forever. Like those are different scenarios. And then based on that answer, you can decide the co-founder or not co-founder route. Like to me, I don't regret it at all. I think it was like circumstantial, time and place, and it made so much sense. And like, man, what a journey I went on through all my 20s. Like, there's no way I could knock that. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't do that. So, no regrets in terms of that. But it's interesting now as I start different businesses, because now when I start a business, I'm like, what is the vision for this business? Where am I trying to take it? Like one of my shameless plugs right now is like my email marketing service, right? We have an email marketing service for direct consumer brands, and it's doing great. My whole vision for the business was have 5 to 10 clients and never any more than that. And I want to keep those clients forever.
So cool.
That's my vision, right? And what's cool is I opened that, I think, a year and a half ago. I have 7 clients right now. I'll keep them forever. Maybe I'll get a couple more, but that's the whole business. Like I'm succeeding in that business. It profits every month. My employees get paid. Our clients love the work. Like it's a fantastic business, and I'm thankful now because when I created it, it's not just like forever up, bigger is better. Actually, that's not the case for this business. Like the case for this business is have 5 to 10 clients, keep them forever, keep them happy, and turn a profit and get everyone paid.
I,
That's the whole vision for the business.
that's an awesome, that's an amazing answer. And I agree. I think, yeah, it's less about like, should you bring on a co-founder? It's really the wrong question. It's what do you want? And then what's required? How do you recommend? Because I've been 20 something years old too, and starting a product business or starting a software, like how do you get clear on that though in your 20s? I feel like I can do that now pretty easily.
Yeah.
But like back then I had no clue.
And that might be the answer, right? You might have to go through the roller coaster to be able to understand the whole ride. Like we can only do that now looking back. When I was 20, there's no way. I didn't have the perspective, the experience, or anything to base my thinking off of. Like, so I don't know how I would have even got there. Like if I was 20 years old today, I still wouldn't have the perspective to be able to understand what I really want out of it and be objective in that. And I think like when you're 20 and you're just getting going, and the world romanticizes the idea of being this big entrepreneur making all this money, blah, 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 blah. Like that's pretty attractive when you're 20. What you don't realize is the gives, like the sacrifice you have to make, right? Like, so you just start to go through that journey. And then from there, I think you just get smarter and smarter as time goes on. Some people though, the caveat is some people get lucky. Some people hit it just right, very young, and it all works out. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I think it's a lifelong optimization where I try to get better at it every time, and that's it.
Burnout. You talk about burnout. Your biggest burnout experience in your life. What happened? Set the stage. What was going on, and then when did you hit a wall?
Yeah, it was my timelines are a little blurry, probably because I haven't gone back to like pinpoint all of them, but big round numbers in terms of timelines, and then I'll give you the reality of actual burnout. But like 2018 released the hoodie, 2019 business is booming, 2020 the spring before COVID, I'm like we hear of this incoming COVID, whatever this thing is, and my main investor that gave us the $1 million is like, hey, like probably got to lean it out. Like this thing can put us out of business. People are going to stop spending. Like this could be it. I'm like, wow, like after all these years, like I'm going out of business. Like 2 weeks later, pandemic hits, everyone's at home spending their money that they're getting in the mailbox. They're spending their money. And what are they doing? They're buying alcohol and buying comfy clothes to be at home. So our business is booming. It's like we're making headlines with our blanket blend. Everyone's wearing them. We have celebrities buying from us, all these things. Business is great. So just that roller coaster is like a complete 180 right there. So 2020 is good. 2021 is a little harder. By the time 2022 comes around, now like there's this internal decision in the organization to like really send it. And I think I didn't know enough at that point in time to say like, I absolutely don't want to do this. Only now looking back can I see like, oh, I didn't intuitively want to do that. And I kind of trusted the instinct and the vision that the people around me had. So we kind of got this pressure to like grow at all costs. And we made some really big bets on headcount, big expensive headcount that we couldn't afford. Then it led us to raising money. So all of a sudden we're digging this hole. And I think the reason I hit burnout is because I wasn't in touch with like what I actually wanted to do. And what I actually wanted to do was the opposite of all the things that we were doing, right? So the more we dug this hole deeper, the more that I just crumbled. And then one day I couldn't even answer an email. Like if you emailed me, I was like, I'm too tired. I just was like, all I wanted to do was curl up in a ball on the ground and talk to no one for like weeks on end until I could recharge. So I called my first investor and top advisor and say, Charlotte, I'm toast. Like I don't know what's going on. She's like, you need a leave of absence. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but that sounds good. So I take a leave of absence for 30 days, do nothing for 30 days. It goes by like this. End of 30 days. People are calling me, you ready to come back? And I'm like, I gotta be honest with you. I'm just scratching the surface on like taking care of myself. And they're like, okay, well, how long do you need? I'm like, I don't know. Like, well, we need a timeline. I'm like, I have no idea. Like I'm in this era now of like taking care of myself. Like this could be years. I've never had this before. I have no idea. So I'm getting this kind of like respected pressure from them. Like they're kind of respecting what I'm doing, but I can't give them answers, so it's driving them nuts a little. But I couldn't. So I just hit this burnout. Took a bunch of time off. We named my co-founder the interim CEO, and I just did nothing for like months on end, and walked my dogs, like just like took care of myself, started going to the gym, focusing on what I eat, all the basic stuff that you hear in the headlines. Like I had to do that for the first time, like very consciously. And I recharged, dude. And I think I'm still kind of on that journey of recharging. Now it's 2024. And I think it's been like this multi-year like recovery of probably 10 years of neglect of myself, right? Like 10 years, like, yes, my life was awesome, but I also just I wasn't in touch with myself. I was just doing what my business needed. So that's a long story, but that's kind of like the gist of the burnout that I went through.
Wow, that's actually really powerful. I think I'm going through something similar right now. Not in the business of Luminous. Actually, I feel like very in touch with Luminous and our vision.
Yeah.
But like this idea of like looking inward and asking yourself, what do I want to do? I think that's a question
Yeah.
I have not asked in 10 years, and I'm actually like that's actually a topic of conversation in like my therapy sessions. Is like,
Yeah.
but like, what do
I
you
think we're
want to
the
do?
same age, right? Are you like 30, 31?
31. Yeah.
Yeah, 31. So we're the same exact age. This is like a very predictable thing around this age. And if you haven't read this book, it's called The Amazing Development of Men. I had a friend recommended it to me. I'm not even that big of a book person, and when I say I read it, I listened to it. But it was incredible, man. Like everything you think that's so unique, all of a sudden you're being introspective, blah blah blah. This is predicted. It happens to every man somewhere around 30 years old, and then somewhere around 50, something similar happens again. I can't recommend that book enough. I'll listen to it
Okay,
over and over, and I probably will start listening to it again
I'm,
today.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And everyone I've recommended it to says, like, this is awesome. It's just like you think these things are unique to you, right? Because of your experience, but they're not. It's actually very predictable.
That's really
You kind of
interesting.
find comfort in that, you know? You're like, oh, this is how it goes.
Okay, so burnout happens. I'm guessing you get bought out.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Kind of. So burnout happens. I'm kind of like, I was the biggest shareholder of the business. I own like 69% of the business.
Wow.
But I couldn't show up to work, you know? Kind of an awkward situation to be in. At the same time, direct-to-consumer business valuations are plummeting. We have this new capital, but then we're burning it at an accelerating pace. So it's just like this storm of like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Take a bunch of time off. Then I have kind of a falling out with my co-founder, and all of a sudden he gets very angry towards me for taking this time and stuff, and he couldn't understand it, and then every problem was then my fault for creating it, and there was no credit given for any of the good in the business, right? Only all the bad is my fault, and we had this big falling out. So I was like, cool, I'm out. You can be the CEO. I'm out. My mental health and like my own sanity is more important to me than this business. I don't care. So I left. Over the next like few years, we're just like negotiating all this equity and stuff, and it's just a brutal process. Long story short, basically the venture money that came in absorbs like 60% of the business for the money that they've already put in. So my co-founder publishes self-writes this article and publishes how he was the founder of this business, and he was the CEO, and it sold for it was once valued at $70 million. Like, this is not true. He published this article to basically like pump himself up and look really look incredible. But the reality is the business, the venture capitalist that put money in took over 60 something percent of the business for money already put in. So no one actually took money off the table. And he was the CEO for, I think, 15 months before he also stepped down. So don't believe everything you read online. I just try to speak the truth. That's kind of how it all panned out.
Wow, man, that must have been difficult because you have to watch. I mean, maybe by that point you didn't perceive this business as your baby, but I'd like to think like there's something emotional, like
sure. For sure.
I
The weirdest thing is like one day I wake up and my email's deleted. I'm like, my email's deleted. Like, I bought those domains. Like, this is my business. Like, what? I don't have access to you know what I mean? It's weird things like that you're just like, whoa, that's weird. But at the same time, the flip side of that is it's kind of cool. Like, this thing is living on without me. Like, I think that's kind of the dream. The only part of the dream that I couldn't really recognize was like getting the big foam check standing on a stage. So I didn't get that part, but I got the dream of like building something that lives beyond me. and now it's operating, and people know it. Like we had people like hundreds of thousands of customers buy our stuff. Like if you go in the airport, you're probably going to see someone wearing something from us, and that's kind of cool.
That's amazing.
Like objectively, I'm like, that's kind of a cool outcome. Like not bad.
Do you and your do you and the Feet team still talk, or you and your co-founder?
Yeah, still talk. I have a great relationship with the investors in the business. Some of the team now is like all new. I don't really know them. It's kind of funny when we had a store, and I was kind of in the midst of my burnout. We had a store in LA, and I went in the store and I'm asking them questions about these things, and in my head, they don't know who I am, and I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of wild, right? Like
That
this
is
thing is now
cool.
bigger than me, and it's kind of cool. Like I don't know, if I dreamed up all the outcome for this business, I think I got most of the things I ever wanted out of it. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh, that honestly, it's amazing though that I'm really happy to hear that you guys are still on good terms. Like you still talk to the people in the business, and you've been
Yeah.
able to frame this outcome in your mind in like a really healthy way. It feels like
Yeah, I think so. I think
that's
so, man.
amazing.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, of course, you wish you got the big bag of money, but like, I was able to make money all along the way. Like, I never had a job, like that wasn't working for my own business. Like that's pretty cool. All my 20s, like I never applied for a job or anything. So I was able to build this business, travel the world, do all these things. Man, I have so many crazy, incredible highs, incredible lows. One of the notable lows, this would be a good little sound clip, but I remember I'm driving to a factory downtown LA, and I'm getting a call from Amex. So I answer as my primary business card holder, and they're like, all your stuff is frozen. Like, you are way overextended. You haven't been paying, blah, blah, blah. And I look at it, and basically I have $0 to my name, and I owe $500,000. So I have $0. I owe $500,000. But in this business, you need to spend money to make money. The
Yeah.
cliche, but you literally need to spend on ads to make more money. But my spending vehicle is gone. So I have no cash. I have no leverage,
Oh my
and I
god.
have $500,000 of personally guaranteed on a credit card. Um,
Yeah.
and at that moment, man, I remember the exit I was at in LA, and I was like, I don't know how I'm getting out of this one. So, that was one of those moments that probably sticks with you for a long time.
Well, how did you resolve that? What happened?
Oh my gosh. So I went back to our primary investor and I said, Here's the plan. I think I can do this." And I was half confident, but she was more confident than me. And she's like, "You can do this." She goes, "I'm going to give you a loan for 250K so that you can get this vehicle working." Like, she believed in me more than I believed in me. And I think I repaid it all the debt and her 250 like within a year.
Oh,
And
that's
it worked.
awesome.
And it's like, but like my back was against the wall and nowhere to turn. I explained the vision, what was working, what didn't, and uh, it worked. But it's crazy now, man. It makes me sweat thinking about it even now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So are you really jaded towards e-commerce and product businesses now? Like, do you want to do it in the future? Like, cause yeah, I feel like you're such a wealth of knowledge. Like, you could crush an e-com business now. Or are you just super jaded?
Um, I'm definitely a bit jaded, but now I've been working with Flagship for which we can dive into for like a
Yeah.
year and a half. So I've had exposure to over 500 direct-to-consumer brands of varying level of success. Right, guys like True Plastics I work with, they're doing a couple hundred million a year. They're kind of like the darling of the space right now, or one of them. And then I've worked with really small mom and pops that are shipping out of their kitchen. So I still love the idea of like creating something and bringing it to life and then selling it and getting the satisfaction and the feedback loop of like the consumer buying it and enjoying it. Like, I still am a little bit hooked on that process. Does that mean I need to go and create my own direct to consumer business right now? No, but maybe I can make tools to like give these direct to consumer founders a better chance at success because I know how hard it is, right? Like, I think everyone looks at these direct to consumer founders as like a great customer to sell to. I look at it as like, how can I help them do better and become more profitable and build a bigger, stronger, healthier business for the long haul? I think that's pretty interesting. So like, I'm certainly still flying around this industry. I'm not going to start my own direct to consumer business today. I don't have any like burning desire to do that, but I'm still like heavily involved in this, especially between Flagship with creators and influencers for these brands, and then builders for the email marketing service. Like I'm still very much operating in this world, but not going to start a direct consumer brand today.
Why Flagship? Because I remember that was, you went through a burnout period, and I bet that next move was very intentional. Why Flagship?
Yeah. Yeah, Flagship was really interesting, man. So when I kind of stood back up after this long period of burnout, I was like, all right, let me just go work with a couple different companies on a fractional capacity to get the wheels turning, right? So like you said, like I can add value to these different businesses, and then I'll just do it in a fractional way to be able to get exposure and see what is really my calling. And I met the founder of Flagship. His name is Yusuf, and he just was totally inspiring to me. Like he was one of the most exciting conversations I've had, and in the past couple of years, he said, "This is the thing I'm going to build, and we really need people to connect us with Shopify brands." And I'm like, "That's my world," Like it was just such a perfect fit. I'm like, most people in this space know Feet, know me, or know someone I know. So like, I just have that network where I was like, "This is a perfect plug-in," and I believe in Yusuf. It's probably like 80% I believe in Yusuf, and I would have probably been the janitor for his office just because I respect and admire him so much. The role almost didn't matter. That was just a bonus. And he was like, "Hey, I started there on a contract, and then I think within 2 months he was like, 'You got to come full time.'" And to which I said, "Dude, I don't really do jobs. I've never had one. I don't think you should hire me here." But ended up doing it anyway, and it's been a fun run.
Oh, that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
has it been difficult at all? Well, actually, first off, what is Flagship? Excuse me.
Yeah.
What is Flagship?
Okay.
What is Flagship? What do you guys do?
Yeah, basically, Flagship enables brands and creators to work together on a commission basis to find mutual success. So our big vision is we want to build the ads manager for the creator economy. So historically, like you would go arrange a deal as a brand with a creator or an influencer. You would negotiate it back and forth, and it's very one-off, and it's really hard to scale. Like this industry has lacked scalability of creators and influencers as a channel. That's what we're building. We're building the infrastructure for creators and brands to be able to actually scale with each other. Imagine a world where, in the same way you can go from spending 100K a month to $1 million a month on Facebook, imagine you could do that with creators. That is like the actual tooling that we want to build.
And why was that such a pain specifically for you at Feet? What was the pain that you felt?
Man, I mean, we worked with some of the biggest celebrities in the world. We worked with Logan Paul with his first merch ever. We built socks for him. He sold them, integrated with his videos, sold $500,000 of socks in the blink of an eye. We worked with Kristen Cavallari. She sold $500,000 of socks in the blink of an eye. Like we worked with Brody Jenner and all these incredible celebrities, but it's very spiky and it's hard to replicate.
Yeah.
What if we could actually round up thousands of creators that could talk about us at all different times? We'll pay them on a commission basis, and we build it in a way that like the brand can kind of throttle it and be in more control. And that was really, really interesting to me. It's a big problem. It's a big thing to solve, but if we can crack it, it gets pretty interesting.
Wow, what an amazing way to take all of your experience in your network and do something very meaningful. Yeah. I have a question though, because you're going from entrepreneur, CEO, founder, fundraising, like you make the rules, to now being like you're a W-2 employee. How has that shift been? Is it?
It's been fascinating, man. And actually, do you mind if I just pause for 1 second? I'm going to move a call.
Yeah.
Sorry. Everybody. No worries. I'm good. I can totally move this.
My bad, dude. I should have winded this down.
No, it's all good. Okay. Let me see.
On the bright side, we're going to have a lot of really cool clips for you, though.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be awesome. I love it. Okay, do you want to re-say that, or are you just going to edit it out?
I'll set it out, yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, the big changes going from running your own thing and you know what it's like to be the founder. Everyone's on your back, and it gets really heavy at times. But with that, you get so much pride and joy in the work that you're doing. So then jumping into a different company, I joined I think I was employee number 2 or 3 at Flagship. I think number 3 actually at Flagship. So very early, 3 co-founders. I'm employee number 3, so there's 6 of us working around the table. So it's very much like early stage. I wanted exposure to tech. I wanted to work with Yusuf, and I wanted to like apply all my skills and network. For those reasons, like it made a lot of sense to go work on the business. And it's enabled me to do a lot of other things that I don't know if I could have done them when I was running Feet, because it's just when you're the founder of the business, as you know, the business consumes you, 100% of you. Since working at Flagship, like I got married, I bought my first house, we got a kid on the way. Like it's enabled me to do these other things outside of work and like lean in there while also just like contributing and adding real value in an organization. So like there's so many pros and cons. It's just such a nuanced situation where it's enabled all these other things. I've been able to bring a lot of value to the business internally. It's been a big change. It is what it is, but it's definitely interesting getting a W-2 from someone else for the first time. That was definitely fascinating. Yeah.
Okay. Well, are we ever going to see Parker Burr launch a kick-ass D2C brand again? Or are those days done for now?
You know, I don't know if I'll launch a brand again. I'm not sure yet. There's some nuances to that as well. Like I think it's fascinating the idea of like working with creators and celebrities to help them develop brands. I think that's fascinating. I know a lot of people doing that, but like, the idea of like just developing a brand out of the blue and then trying to bring it to market, I probably wouldn't do that. Like I think it lacks a competitive edge, with the only caveat being if you have something truly proprietary. So if you have something proprietary, that becomes really interesting, but having something proprietary is really hard. So I think it would depend on the product. And if it made sense. It doesn't mean I still believe there's massive businesses to be built in this space, and there are people winning at it right now. But I think for now, I think I'm sticking with software and services to enable these businesses to be more successful.
Okay, awesome. Well, offline, I'm always tinkering on this. Like for me, I'm always just like a tinker with like consumer products. I'm always like, it's just like a creative outlet for me. I want to share some like product prototypes and ideas that I've had. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I was going to do it on the podcast, but this is going to...
I was going to say, I think we should give a freebie. I have a freebie, and this is something that I've been thinking about, and then you should give a freebie, and we'll see if anyone engages with it.
Okay.
You want to go first, or you want me to go? It doesn't matter to me.
No, you go first. I'll do the second.
All right, cool. One of my ideas that I've been chewing on, I have a whole book of ideas in my notes app, but this idea is, it's only a couple weeks old, but the idea is, what else could we do to monetize the traffic that these direct-to-consumer brands are driving, right? So all these direct-to-consumer Shopify brands are getting all this traffic, which has value, and the only way they're really monetizing it is through selling their own goods. So then you see softwares like Disco come out and enable those same brands to sell other brands. I think that's fascinating. But what else could they sell? Like, are there other ad placements they can sell? There's some value to that traffic. Like, if you aggregated all of the traffic across all Shopify stores, like, there's a lot of value there beyond just buying a product. So what does it look like? Like, could a post checkout ad to like sign up for Netflix be a thing? I don't know what it is. Like, could it be more applicable? Could it be post checkout on a country merchandise website, then serve Morgan Wallen country song ad? Like what could happen there to like further monetize the traffic to prop up these brands for another way of monetizing?
That's actually so interesting. I feel like that goes in right now. There's a big expansion in backend tech, specifically on like your cart add-ons, so like route and shipping insurance and loop. And it would be so cool if somebody aggregated all of the data and then like cross-sold advertisements and add-ons. That's actually a sick idea.
There's something there. Right. The concept is there's a lot of traffic, but traffic has value. We all agree on that. So like, what else could you do to monetize? Maybe like there's probably some form of advertising, but I don't think it's sell other brands' products. I think that's been done. There's resources to do that. But like, what other ways could I monetize it? Where else could it be?
It's like taking the concept of an add-on, like somebody doing an add-on that just gets drop shipped on the side, but like on steroids, like across, like it could be digital streaming. It could be like,
Dude, what if on the homepage of a brand, on the homepage of a brand, you can have a bar that is ad placements, not like banner ads, but music. You know what I mean? Like view, like you can rack up these views for music. So you like discover new music that way, or new videos or content. Like it's just fascinating. I'm not sure what it, the idea requires more work, but that's a freebie for everyone. I'll build it
That's a
with you.
great
I'll build it
idea.
with you if you're technical. If you're technical, I'm down to build it with you. So
That's
that's my first idea.
that's freaking awesome. Okay, so for
Yeah.
my freebie is a baby gate idea. So I've had this idea for years. So I've two kids. The baby gate market is ridiculous. It's antiquated, looks shitty. So either you spend less than $100 and you just get like prison bar vibes, and it like will
Perfect.
blow through your drywall, and then like so even like the more expensive gates, they're not really that great looking. You end up having to do like a custom baby gate on like Etsy or House. In fact, that was actually my business for a while. I dropped out of college to start building like barn door hardware and baby gates. So that's where I kind of
That's so
noticed this.
cool.
So I was just like, okay, everybody's buying these rustic wooden baby gates, but like, what if I could sell a retail package that looked beautiful and was super easy to install? Like I'm talking like comes out of the box, like plop, plop, tighten like with a lever, and like that's it. It's good to go, and it looks beautiful. I always figure that like, okay, if you could manufacture this high quality materials, really address all of the problems of cheap, expansive baby gates into a space where it's like
Yeah.
really sturdy, really good. Retail for less than $200. Oh my God, that's like $100 million idea.
I
For
love that one. I think probably more. And like I like it. I like it for the price point. I like it for the utility of it. So you're not just competing on being cool, but there's true utility in the thing that you're selling. And then aesthetic. You have to meet certain aesthetics. So that would be a little bit of an area for you to figure out. But I think it's pretty interesting. You can imagine the content selling this.
so I actually did I'm going pretty far down this route. Like I've done a prototype. Obviously this is not good
Yeah.
looking, but like I've done like a really good looking version. It can account for baseboards and chair rails, and I have an actual prototype that is not prototypey, and it actually looks beautiful. It looks like a barn style gate, but this was like the first concept of it.
Oh, it's so good.
But
So good. You're right. My in-laws have all these dogs in their kitchen, and they keep them in the kitchen. So they have like three baby gates keeping the dogs in the kitchen, all ugly, all ripping down the walls,
yeah, it's
all in the
crazy.
way and gross. Like they're not attractive, like it's not cool.
Let me see, before we close. I want to show I'm curious to hear your thoughts on I have some actual pictures of the finished one, and then we'll close the
Ooh,
podcast out.
excited to see this one. Yeah, all good. Excited to see this one.
If I can freaking find it. Oh, here we go. This is great right here. Okay, here, share my screen again. It's funny. This is the stuff I do on the side for fun.
Oh, so cool. It looks great, dude.
So yeah, that's
You
my
would crush
idea.
this.
I don't
Okay,
I don't
so
have enough time to launch it though, or money right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like I'm still, I in tech, when you're at like Series A and like you have undeniable traction, you're still just rich on paper. You can't really make much money. So I just don't
Yeah.
have what it takes to like really like go into it. So
It yeah, that's interesting, man. I think the best way to launch that, pre-sale. Pre-sale, get it out there, see gauge the excitement. I think that's really interesting.
you,
Join some baby groups, ask people to talk about like just test the waters before you actually sell anything.
yeah,
It
I
would
was
make a
worried about
fantastic Kickstarter,
pre-sale.
actually.
See, I've thought about doing Kickstarter, but I've always heard like, oh, but you have to spend too much money on Kickstarter. Oh, you got to spend at least 100K, and I'm just like, I don't.
Yeah, but you either spend it like it either spends profitably or you don't. Like so it's kind of interesting, man.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like it. I think it's the coolest gate I've ever seen.
Thanks, man. I
So,
appreciate it.
so future Jared, future Parker, we got baby gates and advertising embedded on websites. It's
There we
pretty
go.
inspiring future. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Netflix
Yeah.
is going to be advertising my baby gate to some random mom. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, man, that was awesome. That was a blast. I appreciate the time. And where can everybody? I mean, I don't know if you're like actively. I know you post on LinkedIn and you have an Instagram,
Yeah.
but like, do you want people following you? Where
Yeah.
can they find you?
So I would definitely say on LinkedIn, check me out on LinkedIn. Like that is where I have the most interesting conversations with people outside of like podcasts like this. But that's where I'm interacting with people on LinkedIn. I'm posting about stuff that is inspiring, interesting, offensive, like just things that just spark conversation, and sharing all my learnings on my journey so far, and just connecting with other founders like Jared and talking about the journey. So definitely just check me out on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with everyone.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks, Parker.
Yeah.
And we'll see you around, man. Bye.
Woo. Thanks, Jared.